Hello, my fellow readers. I Dark Symphony 777 with the finale of the Luniverse. These final two stories. Thank you for having to put up with all these ponies and politics and Trixie and stuff like that, and also drunk Trixie. Yeah. Oh, it's a long job. 30 plus stories, and we're at the end with the final two. Thankfully, these stories aren't going to be that long. Oh, thankfully. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, we got Pinkie and Bluie and the game in the garden. I wanted to do these two stories together because they are both technically epilogues to season one, i.e., after the Grand Galway Gala. So we got that. Pinkie and Bluey is an okay story. Pretty good. It's pretty good for an epilogue. It. I think I drank like way too much chocolate milk. Oh, now my stomach's not feeling well. Oh yeah, now I remember. This story technically expands upon the Pinkie Pie and Blue Blood storyline from at the Grand Galvin Gala, which is fine. I never really. I mean, reading this again, I kind of put it in perspective. That Trixie really should not have done the poisoning thing, because it's like, oh, I get why. And reading the story, I get why Trixie did it, because Trixie was being cautious and being careful. And the story kind of proves it's like, she was overcompensating and really didn't see anything wrong with it. But let's get started. So, to put this into context, during the Grand Galloping Gala part, Blueblood was actually wandering around looking for a mare to eventually go home and do the horizontal limbo with. He came across two ponies using his key mark. He came across Raindrops, who was pretending to basically during that was trying to keep Blueblood from getting poisoned by Zizanie, although Zizanie didn't know about it, and Rarity, in essence mimicking the canon events, the Grand Galloping Gala with with Rarity kind of pissing off Blue Blood. However, before he could go after either of them, he bumps into Pinkie Pie, and Pinkie Pie decides, "I'm gonna be your date." And they spend the rest of the Grand Galloping Gala just talking. Blue Blood's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get drunk," and eventually they just start talking to each other. It's like this, like, what about chimichangas or chirichangas? It's like, And then it's just weirdly get philosophical and contains a reference to, of all stories, Pinkie Pie watches dry paint. Okay, weird flex, but okay. I take really weird references to other fan fiction for 500. That's and when Trixie does pretend to poison the Blue Blood, we actually see Pinkie actually leaves the room, and then Pinkie Pie decides, well, next time I'll bring syrup. And Blue Blood, knowing that Trixie is squeamish around anything involving the sex, Blue Blood plays along and says, and blueberries, which Trixie kind of gets sick by. Yeah, this is Trixie. And the story reveals that Pinkie Pie was literally making pancakes, and Blue Blood, he knew what he was doing. But what's the full on plot about? Well, the full on plot is basically just continuing on from the storyline of the Grand Galloping Gala. They leave. Blue Blood feels humiliated over the simple fact that Luna chewed out the entire night court. However, unlike the rest of them, Blue Blood, the story kind of reveals that Blue Blood was basically, he wasn't so much an idiot, more that he knew his family name was like besmirched, and he He's only doing like a lot of the political stuff strictly because he thought doing it would literally raise the standing of his family for the future generations. So in the end, he does a little thing where Blue Blood's not really evil. He's an idiot, but he's not really evil, unlike the Green Grasses, because he honestly just thinks that he pretty much just has to do it because everyone else does it, and he realizes, well, this is what it takes to restore my family's name. I'm gonna have to do it. So yeah, there's that. Um, and then he just continues hanging out with Pinkie Pie. Like that's it. And we also get like a little story where, whew, I'm tired. I hate being tired. I'm always tired when I'm like sleeping in my goddamn car. But let me continue on. Well, anyway, Blue Blood constantly tries to pull a Blue Blood. Basically, okay, he had the sex with Pinkie Pie. Now to toss her to the side, but then he struggles with the fact that he can't. Okay, sweet thing. And after that, it's just literally just him trying to struggle to understand whether or not him trying to struggle whether or not he actually wants to keep Pinkie or he wants to toss her to the side. And he eventually decides to, you know what, Pinkie Pinkie does something for me. I'm gonna I'm gonna see where this takes me. And it basically just ends up like that. They just hook up. There's even a cute scene at the end where Blue Blood invites Pinkie to like a very high skill party because he thinks that Pinkie is just not going to behave, to see how she reacts, and then she actually randomly starts acting posh. And Blue Blood's like completely confused, like, why are you acting like that? It's like, well, yeah, I'm a party mayor, but I know there's gonna be different types of parties and stuff like that. And this doesn't require like the pin-a-tail and the donkey and stuff like that. It requires a more class. So I'm doing it to put up with because I'm with you. It's actually, which admittedly is kind of nice. There is one part at the beginning, where in this story specifically, instead of Trixie poisoning him, it was changed to a random suck up who wants to like try and get up to the night court who wasn't yelled at by Luna, so he wasn't aware. It's actually mentioned right here where it's gonna be re-updated, so he doesn't even know. As far as I know, he doesn't even know if he'd be able to change it again to the previous. Honestly, spoiler, that pretty much be the only thing I'd change because it'd be consistent. We know it was actually Trixie. There's no like you can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna change it," and then not change it back. Okay. Character-wise, you only really have Pinkie and Blue Blood. They're both all right. I pretty much summed up Blue Blood in the plot. Blue Blood is just wants to fix the storyline and then falls in love with Pinkie, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's doing like very awkward stuff, but it's like it's okay. There's even a part where he talks to his butler, and I was like, "Well, you've been in my employ for a long time?" Yes. Have any of my family members ever fallen in love with a commoner? Yes, there was your uncle. Fell in love with I think it was a craftsmare, and then he died. And then he actually died from mainly from old age. It's like but did he love her? It's like he would do anything. He absolutely adored her. But yeah, that's it with the grand. That's it. That's actually it with Pinkie and Blue. There's not much. There's not much to this story. It's just yeah, pompous prick falls in love with Baker. Tries to struggle whether or not that he actually does love her or wants to kick her to the curb. Details at 11. Okay. And then we got the game in the garden. Let's just move on to this and finish the Lunaverse. The game in the garden. The god was perfect. It was a place of art, really. Flowers spread over beds of soil in brilliant patterns of color. One color would blend smoothly into the next, hinting at a greater purpose for them all. This veritable sea of colors danced and weaved across the entire room. Sometimes it would appear to flow one way, only to suddenly sink another. If one wasn't careful, their eyes would endlessly swirl through the patterns for hours. Greengrass liked it like that, or at least he used to. It's a reminder of the game. Remember, Gulbut's whole character is that he saw the entire thing of politics as one big game, just something, just a hobby. Just realized I need to get that out of the way. It is a symbol of the internal struggle between nobles as 1,000 plans, both big and small, wove between one another in an eternal pursuit of power. Vines climbed the walls, gently embracing the various pipes meant to give life to the flowers below. It was they who watched and decided the fate of the flowers. They guided them here and there by blocking just a little bit of light or redirecting the sprinkler water just slightly as it fell. It was they who ruled above the coming flowers, and it was they who had the ambition to rise higher still. It's supposed to appear as though the ultimate embodiment of the Night Court. Right now, however, Greengrass wasn't sure what he saw. This isn't fun anymore. He said that. He actually said that about the game. He built himself up so far only to have it taken away. No one would trust him again after all the words that Scourge of Poison made him say. He might make allies in time, but that would take years. Even worse, though, was the stigma that would follow him for actually insulting the Watcher of the Night. It was one thing to dance around the princess for personal gain, and yet another for opponents to show any sign that they themselves better than the ruler of Equestria. The brown earth pony moved to the center of his private garden. Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. The brown earth pony moved to the center of his private garden. There was a fountain there that would he sometimes just watch for hours. He would stare into the small, small eddies and currents of the running water, and just try and pour all his racing thoughts into them. He would purge himself of the hundreds of different schemes he had kept track of, until all that was left were thoughts that mattered. Where'd he go wrong? The Duke murmured. I thought I covered every angle. I knew each and every one of my opponent's weakness. So how is it? So how is it? Why am I getting that wrong? So how is it I was outmaneuvered? He sat there, pouring every scheme and plan he had ever made into the fountain, trying to look for that one little bit of info he missed. There had been some tidbit of info he missed somewhere. Was it Lunamoon or Fancy Pants? No, Lunamoon was still too arrogant and insufferable to hold a candle to someone with experience in the court. Right there. That's where we're literally right there. That's pretty much it. They only saw the worst in people. And Fancy Pants had never made a move to eliminate anyone in the court. He was content with his place. Was it one of his own allies then? He didn't think so. They each appeared to have suffered just as much as Luna's anger as he had with the capture of the Discordian. Could it have been Luna herself he miscalculated? No. The princess might never before have raised her anger to the entire court like that. But that wasn't because of a miscalculation. He had figured out long ago her weakness was fear. No one ever considered that the Princess of the Night might make mistakes or have flaws. But that was because the princess was too scared to use her own power to make any. She was too terrified that she might take the path of her sister. Who had he calculated that? Every pony he had ever come in contact with was eliminated one by one. His thoughts on them poured into the fountain, only to be replaced by thoughts of others he had climbed over in the game. Finally, the Duke was left with one pony to examine. Was it me? He wondered, gazing into the distorted reflection's eyes. I don't think I ever bothered to examine what my own biggest weakness was before. I was always too busy exploiting the weaknesses of others. That's silly, whispered a little voice in the back of his head. Isn't it obvious? It wasn't. The Greengrass wasn't crazy enough to respond to what was surely a stress-induced hallucination. The voice didn't care, though. It wasn't often morality got a chance to speak, much less be heard, in Greengrass' thoughts. Your biggest weakness is, and always was, the game. You revel in all of its overly complicated schemes like a certain azure and silvermane unicorn in front of an audience of fools. You bathe in the bluffing and backstabbing, and you frolic among the followers of fears you've generated from your schemes. I suppose it's okay if you like it, but let me ask you something. You ever had truly managed to usurp Luna? Could you have created the grand utopia you wanted the game in place? You can never truly win. You can only stay at the top as long as you can. New players would take the place of the foes you crushed on your rise to the top, and you would be stuck in an endless conflict to hold your position. Does that sound like the so-called utopia you wanted to run? To me, it just sounds like more schemes and plans with no true fruition. In essence, a game. The game, a game. It's a garden that needs weeding. Nothing more, nothing less, muttered Greengrass. Maybe. Just be careful you realize exactly what needs to be weeded out of the system. Despite the reluctance in his answer, the voice held a smidge of smugness, and the Duke shivered like he said the wrong thing for the millionth time that night. He turned back to the garden, glanced about its lush confines once more. The problem was it didn't seem so lush anymore. He noticed flowers wilting in places his eye had passed over before, and there were the tiniest sprouts of weeds in the shadow cast by the vines. A small puddle was almost drowning one or two flowers from a small leak the vines had made in the pipes, and the once smoothing flower patterns now seemed chaotic and disjointed. It was no longer a graceful waltz of color. It was a raging storm of hues that was painful to the eyes. The vines constricted the pipes. They strangled the cold iron, trying to creep their tendrils into the life-giving water that fed everything below them. The Duke's garden looked like a weed. It looked like the night court. The Duke didn't know what to think of that. Notary, why are we here? Why are you here? Gringotts did not bother to turn around to see who had entered his sanctuary. There was only one person who would know he was here. Princess Luna is waiting for you in your office, sir. Notary's tone was professional as always, but the mere fact that Greengrass had heard her coming down the stairs had told him something urgent had come up. After all, he had hired Notary because she and her family were known to be unobtrusive and inconspicuous. An audience with the princess, the Duke laughed. A couple hours ago, I might have thought another sign I was moving up in the world. But you'll forgive me now if I'm less inclined to oblige my executioner. Sir, Notary intoned, forgive me if I'm overstepping my place, but I feel accepting this audience would be for the best. It might be the only way to recover from all the setbacks tonight. Bah! Greengrass heard. I lost irrecoverably this time. You and I both know that. Just go make up some excuse to dismiss the princess so you can go back to finding a new employer with better prospects. Excuse me, sir? Greengrass could hear Notary's eyebrow arch. Don't pull that with me. You have no reason to keep any ties to me anymore. As helpful as you've been, we both know there's such a thing as loyalty in the night court. Of course there is, sir. It wasn't loud or harsh, but Notary's reply was sharp. If I had a jangle for every time one of your enemies offered me compensation to betray you, I'd be richer than the royal coffers. The mayor shook her head. You have more enemies than there are stars in the world, in the sky, but that never mattered to me because it was you who hired me. I had a duty to you and was obligated to meet your expectations. Even when it meant I was helping you break your own obligations and duties. Missing a couple night court meetings is not breaking an obligation, Notary. The Duke drawled. I meant your duty to the common pony, sir. Notary said, retreating towards the stairs. Just as the common pony has a duty to serve the night court, so too does the night court have a duty to remember that it was made to serve the common pony. The night court was built on loyalty, sir. She shook her head. When you remember that, Luna will be waiting for you in your office. Now, you'll excuse me. I need to rest for the inevitable avalanche of paperwork and inquiries you'll receive about the gala. Good night, sir. Gingras watched the stairs by which Notary had left for a while. His careful ruminations and schemes were so lost to the events of the night. Eventually, he let out a sigh and got back on his hooves. Climbing up the stairs, he decided that he might as well get the meeting with Luna over with before she decided to send the Shadowbolts after him. He was going to recover from this. He'd rather not lose the little dignity he had left by getting bounded by Shadowbolts and dragged before the princess. At the top of the stairs, it struck him that Notary had said she'd be coming to work tomorrow, and he couldn't help but chuckle. I guess there is such a thing as true loyalty in the court, he said, closing door behind him. He paused for a second, pondering on what he had just said before adding an afterthought. Maybe I should take a different approach to things. There's always more than one way to play a game, after all. So that's the story, and by and large, that's the Luniverse. I think this is not a bad story. The problem is Greengrass becomes more or less a non-entity in season two. As far as I know, as I said in at the Grand Gala, the only members of the Night Court they interact with in season two is Cruisens and Fisher, and that's because they're the only ones that have the balls enough to have like the balls to actually break Luna's rules. Cruisens because she's too old, and Fisher because he's kind of too stubborn and worried. But I think overall this is a good story. I just wish there would be some kind of follow up because as far as I know, Greengrass is like just persona non grata in season two. If season three is ever made, we still have to get to Discord. Maybe. I think it overall It's an alright story. 4 out of 5. Doesn't really do anything. I just don't really feel that. You know what? 3 out of 3 instead of 4 out of 3. I think the biggest problem with the story is there's no fault. There's like zero follow up because of just the fact that Greengrass just disappears from season 2 and we don't know what's happening with him. But yeah, that is the last 2 stories of the Looniverse. This has been Dark Symphony 777. I will see you next time when I'm not doing the Looniverse. I'll see you next time, and cut.